What is up, guys, and welcome to Doomfist Myth Busting, where we test all of the interactions that Doomfist will encounter in-game so you know how they'll perform. His rocket punch, his alternate fire ability, is so riddled with bugs and weirdness that it took forever to test, and we're going to show you all the interactions here today, as well as all his damage values, how to get shields on him more effectively, how many shields you get, how to escape various ultimates, tons of these interactions, as well as all of your damage values here in today's video. Let's start off with one of the weirdest interactions that Rocket Punch encounters. Rocket Punch versus another Doomfist's Rocket Punch. What happens when you Rocket Punch each other at the same time? Well, this is one of the weirder interactions because for some reason, no matter how we tested it, in my testing, when I was Rocket Punching my friend, even though we started at the same exact time, every time, I always dealt the damage and never received any, which leaves us to believe this is potentially random or ping related. I had the better ping, therefore my punch registered before his, and since it's a stun, it knocked him out of it, and therefore I was always the one dealing the damage. This is not guaranteed, but we're pretty sure it's the way it works. I'm hoping Blizzard changes that interaction so it's like Reinhardt. When two Reinhardts charge each other, they both get knocked over, and I wish Doomfist would have some interaction like that, because honestly, there have been times when I have a fully charged, Rocket Punch, and the other Doomfist just does like a very light tap on the Rocket Punch, and he knocks me out of it, which doesn't make sense to me. Not too sure how that works, but hopefully it gets changed. The next weird interaction is with Zarya's barriers. So Zarya's barriers usually block stuns and any movement impairing abilities. You can't boop a Zarya when she's shielded, you can't stun her, your Roadhog can't even knock her back until he breaks her shield, yet the Rocket Punch can. Not only does the Rocket Punch knock her back, but it knocks her into a wall too. And the weirdness doesn't stop there. So Zarya doesn't take any damage, that's good, so the shield is working as intended there. But when you knock Zarya into a wall with your Rocket Punch, she only gets charged on the initial hit. If you don't know already, the Rocket Punch does two instances of damage. One when you hit someone, and the other when they hit a wall. We're going to talk about all the damage values later, but for now all you need to know is the second hit, when the Zarya hits the wall, does not give her any charge whatsoever, which is probably a bug. So she only gets 20 charge from this, when she should probably get around 35 or 40. What happens when you Rocket Punch a Reinhardt while he's charging at you? Well, it doesn't look like Reinhardt is the stronger of the two, because every single time, Rocket Punch will stop Reinhardt in his tracks, and you won't take any damage. This is reproducible, it happens every single time, there's no wild cards, it just seems like Doomfist is meant to win this interaction. What about Rocket Punch versus Earth Shatter? Well, in this situation, Earth Shatter is a stun, and most stuns in the game, if you can land them while Doomfist is Rocket Punching, will stop him in his tracks, and this is no exception. Up next, we have Rocket Punch versus Swift Strike. So in this encounter, both of you will actually take damage. Both Genji and Doomfist will take damage. Doomfist will stop in his tracks wherever he hits Genji, but Genji will continue to Swift Strike to wherever he would have normally. So you don't have a chance of knocking Genji back, and you can't go through Genji. As soon as you hit him, you stop. And that's pretty common among all charge interactions. Whenever charge hits something and deals damage to it, you will stop as Doomfist right where you were. And you can only hit one thing as charge. It's not AoE, like some of his other abilities. Rocket Punch versus Bastion while he's in Sentry mode is a super weird interaction as well. For some reason, it won't take him out of Sentry mode for one, but it'll always send him facing in one direction, which switches depending on the map. As you can see here, every time I Rocket Punch him, it just turns him into this direction, this one direction, which is different everywhere. I'm pretty sure that's a bug. I don't think it should switch the way Bastion is facing, let alone the same way every single time. It's just a weird interaction, probably needs to be fixed. So you may be asking, what can stop this Rocket Punch? Well, any sort of stun ability will do it. McCree's Flashbang, Ana's Sleep Dart, Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. All three of these things will stop the Rocket Punch in progress. But you have to be aware, the Rocket Punch is so fast, you're going to need some crazy insane timing and prediction to actually land this. If you throw your Flashbang after you're being Rocket Punched, after he started it, you're too late. The Rocket Punch moves faster than the cast time for things like Flashbang and Sleep Dart, so you're going to be screwed. You really have to anticipate and time these. Boops from Lucio and Winston's ultimate and Pharah do not affect him at all when he's in his Rocket Punch. They'll do damage, like Winston will, and Lucio's boop will deal damage, but they won't actually change his movement path at all. So be aware of that. If you're a Lucio, if he's rocket punching towards you, you can't move him. Neither can Pharah, neither can Winston or D.Va. You win the charge against D.Va as well. Anything that you can deal damage to with the rocket punch will stop you. So Torbjorn's turret will stop you in your tracks, and you'll actually stun it for a few seconds with your rocket punch. Also, Junkrat's trap and his concussion mine are both broken by your rocket punch. You will not get trapped and you will not take damage, but you will stop moving and the trap will be destroyed. So that's an interesting thing to note. Widowmaker's Venom Mine will not stop you, and you will take damage from it because it actually activates before you hit it. It's more proximity based, so you can't break Widowmaker's Venom Mine with a rocket punch like you can with Junkrat's. Rocket punch will break you out of Zarya's ultimate if you were curious about it. You only need to charge it up a little bit to be able to escape it fully. If you don't charge it up enough though, you might not get far enough away and it'll suck you back in, so you have to charge it up just enough to really get out of it. The last interaction is with Orisa. When Orisa uses her Fortify ability where she can't get knocked back and you rocket punch her, you will still deal damage to her and you will take no damage in return. You'll just deal half the damage you did before. Before we move on to the weird interactions with other abilities, let's talk about the numbers behind a Rocket Punch. Rocket Punch will deal two separate instances of damage. One when you hit an enemy and the other when the enemy hits the wall, if you manage to hit them into a wall. The minimum amount of damage you can do with a Rocket Punch when you hit the enemy is 49, and the maximum when you're fully charged is 100. The minimum amount of damage when you hit someone into a wall is also 49, but the maximum is 150. So a fully charged punch into a wall deals 250 damage, which every non-tank in the game except for Bastion can survive. So basically, a minimum when you hit someone into a wall will deal 98 damage, a maximum will be 250 damage, and the minimum without a wall is 49 damage, and the maximum is 100 damage. No matter how much damage you deal to someone, or if they hit a wall or not, you will gain 30 shields for hitting someone with this ability. And like I said, if you hit something that damages you, like Genji's Swift Strike, where you damage each other at the same time, the shields will immediately absorb some of that and it won't affect your health as much. So like when you charge your rocket punch into a Swift Strike, you'll only take like 20 or 30 damage, I don't remember, because your shields will eat up some of it immediately. Now let's talk about your E ability on PC, your Seismic Slam. This is the ability where if you're in the air, you can slam towards like a little marker on the ground and it'll pull enemies on the ground closer to you. This ability functions more normal than the charge. Zarya's barriers will stop the movement, any shields will stop the movement, and it doesn't deal damage through walls or barriers. So it makes sense. One thing that is important to note though is how much shields you get from this ability. This ability is AoE. You can hit multiple enemies with it. For every enemy you hit with your Seismic Slam, you will gain 30 shields for a maximum of 150. You can't have more than 150 shields from your passive at any given time. So that's like 400 HP if you were curious. And as far as damage goes, the Seismic Slam hits everybody in its vicinity for 50 damage. Believe it or not, your Uppercut ability also is an AoE ability, which means you'll gain 30 shields for every enemy you hit with it. It deals 50 damage and it knocks enemies really high into the air. Something that's important to note is that your Uppercut and your Seismic Slam, neither of them are stuns, so you will not be able to stop anyone from using their ultimates like you can with Rocket Punch. You can't stop Roadhog's healing with an Uppercut or a Seismic Slam, but you can with Charge, so just keep that in mind. Oh, I kind of forgot to mention that earlier. Your Rocket Punch is a stun, so anything that McCree can stun to stop, Rocket Punch can as well. You can stop Roadhog's healing with a Rocket Punch, like I did right there. You can stop Pharah's ultimate as well as Reaper's ultimate with it, and any other channeled stun. Even Roadhog's Whole Hog can be stopped with it. Now back to your Seismic Slam, the ability we're talking about before. The last thing we're going to mention here is that it can also be used to escape Zarya's ultimate in certain situations. If Zarya's ultimate is a little bit higher up off the ground, it's really easy to do because it kind of pulls you along. But if you're really close to the ground, and most of the time you will not be able to escape Zarya's ultimate. It'll just pull you right back in. There is only one ability left to myth bust, and that is Doomfist's ultimate, Meteor Strike. This is the one where you hop up into the air, becoming invulnerable, and then drop down on a bunch of your enemies. So the way this ultimate works is when you jump up in the air, you do become invulnerable. Nothing can hit you. We tested to see if Sombra could EMP you. Nothing works. Once you're up there, you're invulnerable for the next 5 or 6-ish seconds until it forces you to come down. When you come down, you will hit enemies for a total of 300 damage if they're in the middle, which falls off to 0 damage at the edges of the circle. Each enemy you hit, no matter how much damage you hit them for, as long as you hit them for at least 1, will give you 75 shields from your passive. So all you need to do is hit 2 enemies and you're hitting the maximum amount of shields possible, which is 150 from your passive, which can keep you alive for a really long time. When enemies are hit by this, they're normally knocked away from the center. Zarya's bubble actually protects her properly this time, as well as all shields like from Reinhardt, Winston, Orisa. All of those will block the damage from going through in that direction as well. Mei's wall will also stop it, as you'd expect. The last piece of myth busting we did was with Nano Boost. Now the question we were asking was, do we get more shields if we hit enemies with our abilities while Nano Boosted? The answer is no. You'll receive only a regular amount of shields because the shields are based on how many enemies you hit, not, how much damage you hit them for. Your abilities will deal more damage, but you won't get more shields. I'm not sure we have gameplay for that, so I apologize. And that concludes our myth busting video. I'm pretty sure we covered every interaction. One that I don't know if we did was Sombra's hack versus his charge. If you manage to actually hack him mid-charge, it will stop the charge, but that is so hard to recreate. The one time we actually got it was not on film, unfortunately. So just to recap, every one of his abilities will give him 30 shields if he hits an enemy with it, for every enemy he hits with it, except for his ultimate, which each enemy he hits will give him 75. You can knock him out of his rocket punch with any stun, but no boops or movement abilities will stop him, and his rocket punch itself is a stun, so you can stop ultimates like Roadhog's Whole Hog, McCree's Deadeye, and other things that you can just stop by stunning. Hopefully you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to subscribe. Check out a different one of my videos. I've got some other Doomfist ones as well as, videos how to gain more SR. I'll see you guys all later. Have a good one. Lone Hawk out.